everybody, this is Maya Good, and this is day 2 of Novel Prep Month. If you missed day 1, please see the link in the down bar where I discuss why you should commit to National Novel Writing Month and what this series is really about. Now, before we get started, I'm not a professional. I'm not a professional writer. I haven't been published yet. I am somebody who failed multiple times at National Novel Writing Month, and in the process, I learned a lot of amazing lessons that finally made it so that I can consistently win National Novel Writing Month. Now, win, fail, we'll get into those kind of words later. But right now, the most important thing for you to do is to recognize that this series of videos is really kind of a boot camp step-by-step format. So if you really have no idea of how to prepare, or you're using a preparation method that's boring and not interesting and you're really struggling, this series will hopefully take you from step 1 all the way through to being prepared for National Novel Writing Month. I'm going to put some resources also in the down bar. The techniques that I use, I've altered some different things, but the primary mode of outlining that I use is the snowflake method, and then I alter it right around step 6 is where I alter it. In addition, I use physically dynamic brainstorming, method acting, and some other things thrown in the mix. I also kind of structure this month like a marathoner would structure marathon training. So the last week we're going to have a taper, and I'll explain why. So with that bit of business out of the way, let's get started. Today we're going to go over brainstorming. So regardless of whether you know what you want to write about or NaNoWriMo is just a twinkle in your eye, today's episode really is geared for you. This is a really important topic because if you're like me, I used to go into National Novel Writing Month each year with an idea, right? And I would take that idea and I would develop that idea. And then I would try to write my novel and then I would fail. And it sounds really weird, but on a core level, my mistake was at the very beginning because I would start with that idea. Sometimes your initial idea for your novel may not be the best idea for your novel. And what brainstorming does is it gets you past that basic surface idea and into the more interesting, the more developable, the more complex ideas that lie just beneath the surface. And that's what we're going to do today. For those of you that don't have an idea, even better. So brainstorming, it's really simple. We've learned it starting in elementary school without realizing it. And here's where we get messed up. We've practiced brainstorming our entire lives. But right around middle school, the teacher sat down and decided to teach us brainstorming. And we all sat down on tables and we all made a central idea, and then we would write whatever ideas around it. And we called that brainstorming. And what that did is it took this huge dynamic creative process and it made it boring, and it made it on paper, and you had to sit down with a pencil, and it was no longer fun. But if you think back to before that, first grade, second grade, and the teacher might throw out an idea, and all the kids would raise their hands with different ideas, and it was dynamic, and you would shout, and you would talk to each other, and you would laugh. That is physically dynamic brainstorming, and that's what I want to talk to you about today. When you sit down to brainstorm, first thing, you're not going to sit down to brainstorm. Yeah, you can, but that's not all you're going to do. The more parts of your body that you involve in brainstorming, the better your session is going to be. So if you normally sit at your desk and open up a pad of paper and just write, I want you to take a walk. Take your cell phone, find a recorder app, record yourself talking to yourself. Yeah, you're going to look a little crazy, but who cares? Your book is more important than how you look to the neighbors. Walk down the street and talk about all the different ideas that come to your head about the novel. If you have an idea, start with that one. Say what the idea is. Then think about it. Do you have a different idea? Do you have multiple ideas? Are there variations on ideas? I want you to come up with a lot of ideas. Don't just stop with the main idea that you think will make an awesome book. I want you to talk it out. I want you to get big pieces of paper or whiteboard and use lots of crayons and colors, and physically, in your physical space, become involved in your brainstorming activity. You're going to write random ideas, anything that pops into your head. If you meditate, meditating beforehand is really great for this because you can kind of clear your brain and put yourself into a creative mode. But the more ideas that you can toss onto that paper, the more you're going to have to work with later on down the line. And when I say a lot of ideas, I'm not exaggerating. You're going to have 2 days before the next big assignment. So today and tomorrow, what I want you to do is to come up with at least 20 distinct ideas. I want them recorded. I want you talking to yourself. I want you writing and drawing, maybe doing jumping jacks, whatever you physically need to do. Heck, one great thing, because brainstorming works really good bouncing ideas off of each other, is to hold a brainstorming party. If you have friends that are also doing National Novel Writing Month, get them together, have a glass of wine, or if you're a teenager, have a bunch of sodas, and toss ideas into the air. And once you've got all those ideas, you're going to systematically write them down. And what you're going to discover is that you had a lot more ideas than you originally thought. Ideas don't just reside in your head and your fingertips. They reside in your whole body. So once you move your body as you're brainstorming, as you're thinking about your writing, you're really priming the pump. And you're going to find that you have an avalanche of ideas, not just 2 or 3. And one idea will lead to 3 more ideas. And then those ideas will lead to completely different ideas. And that's great. You're not going to look at these ideas. You're just going to write them down. It doesn't matter. You're not going to ask yourself how good of a book they'll be. You're not going to ask yourself if they're stupid. You're not going to ask yourself which one's better. That is not your job. Your job today and tomorrow is to just write down ideas. Now, this may take a few hours. It may take a few days. When I was working on Past, I would hold multiple brainstorming sessions, and it pretty much went on for about 2 weeks worth of brainstorming. And it was physically taxing. You'll know that you're doing your brainstorming in the most dynamic way possible if after an hour of brainstorming, you're exhausted. If you're exhausted, you know you're doing something right. Once you have this master list, what we're going to do is on Sunday, we're going to come back to that list and we're going to look at how to weed them down to get your real idea for your National Novel Writing Month novel. Ciao.